Donald Trump's return to the Middle East wasn't just a diplomatic tour, it was a theatrical masterstroke that stunned allies, rivals, and critics alike. From the glistening palaces of Riyadh to the soaring minarets of Doha, Trump orchestrated a high-stakes, high-visibility campaign that aimed to rewrite America's role in the Arab world. And unlike typical state visits mired in policy papers and photo ops, this journey was pure Trump, bold, deal-driven, emotionally charged, and unafraid to ruffle feathers. Why would a sitting U.S. president skip Israel during one of the worst wars in Gaza's history? Why was a rebel-turned-warlord now shaking hands with the world's most powerful leader? Why were Arab monarchs pledging trillions to the U.S. economy in the midst of their own geopolitical pivot eastward? These weren't rhetorical questions. They were the pulse of a strategy Trump unveiled across 5 electrifying days in May 2025. It began in Saudi Arabia, the kingdom that once again became Trump's opening act on the global stage. The symbolism was deliberate. His very first foreign trip as president in 2017 also started in Riyadh. But this time, the stakes were even higher. A lavish royal welcome greeted Trump and his entourage, which included some of the most powerful names in American business: Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Larry Fink, Steven Schwartzman. This wasn't just about flags and fanfare. It was about leverage. And Trump was holding out his hand for Gulf capital on a scale never attempted before, trillions, not billions. The highlight? A surprise policy earthquake. Standing next to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Trump announced the end of U.S. sanctions on Syria. Not weeks, not months immediate. In one swift move, Trump transformed a man once hunted by the U.S. as a terrorist, Ahmed al-Sharaa, into a partner for peace. The rebel leader who overthrew Bashar al-Assad now had the White House's handshake. The message to the region was crystal clear: Trump would rewrite the playbook if it meant results. Trump's meeting with al-Sharaa wasn't just symbolic, it was cinematic. With MBS at his side and Turkey's Erdogan on the phone, Trump declared it was time for Syria to step out of the shadows. He offered investment, legitimacy, and a place in the Arab fold in return for peace, anti-terrorism cooperation, and a pathway to eventual recognition of Israel. No president since Clinton had tried this kind of face-to-face reset. Trump made it feel like destiny, but he didn't linger. He moved next to Qatar, where his arrival triggered a historic first. Never before had a sitting U.S. president made an official state visit to Doha. The Qatari response was nothing short of Royal Theater fighter jets escorting Air Force One, camel-lined motorcades, and opulent banquets dripping in symbolism. It wasn't just hospitality, it was a statement. Trump was being welcomed not as a guest, but as a kingmaker. There, deals flowed like oil. A record-setting $96 billion Boeing aircraft order, billions more in drone and defense systems, and a staggering total of $1.2 trillion in investment pledges. Qatar's sovereign wealth fund would now be funding U.S. infrastructure, energy, and tech, a geopolitical merger of money and might. Trump beamed as Emir Tamim called the moment a new level of alliance. This wasn't diplomacy. This was deal-making as national strategy. Trump's personal rapport with Gulf rulers was the fuel behind it all. Whether flashing a grin over a gifted pen or praising palatial architecture as perfect, he used charm, showmanship, and nostalgia to build trust. It worked. His meetings became more than policy talks, they were political theater designed for impact. But beneath the glitz was a deeper current. Gaza. The war between Israel and Hamas cast a long shadow, and Trump's decision to avoid Israel entirely marked a dramatic break from his first term. In 2017, he had traveled from Riyadh straight to Jerusalem. In 2025, with bombs falling and diplomatic doors closing, he chose a different path, one routed through Arab capitals, not Israeli ones. This wasn't retreat. It was a recalibration. Trump calculated that Arab leaders, those who spoke with Hamas, who funded Gaza aid, who had influence beyond the battlefield, could help broker the ceasefire Israel refused. He made calls to Netanyahu from Riyadh, urging restraint. But his physical absence from Jerusalem sent a message. America would lead from where it mattered most. Arab leaders were united in their response. No peace with Israel until Palestinians had a real path to statehood. No backdoor deals while Gaza burned. MBS told Trump flatly, normalization was impossible under fire. Trump, once the architect of the Abraham Accords, now found those bridges singed by war, but he didn't push back. Instead, he promised a post-war plan, something bigger. something that could include Saudi-Israel peace if Gaza was rebuilt and Palestinians had a future. In the UAE, Trump closed his tour with a vision of the future. Abu Dhabi wasn't about history or conflict. It was about what comes next. With President MBZ, Trump unveiled plans to deepen U.S.-UAE cooperation in technology, green energy, AI, and manufacturing. The Emiratis had already pledged $1.4 trillion to U.S. investments. Trump came to seal the deal. He did more than that. He loosened tech export restrictions that had frustrated Gulf partners under Biden. He opened the door to American microchips, semiconductors, and advanced software flowing freely to Emirati innovation hubs. It was a gift that matched their ambition and earned American firms new contracts and partnerships. Military ties remained strong. The UAE, already a major arms buyer, discussed expanding its U.S. defense purchases. Talks even surfaced about reviving the long-shelved F-35 deal. But the centerpiece was economic. Vision 2071, the UAE's long-term strategy, needed American muscle. Trump gave it and got jobs, money, and geopolitical clout in return. Yet no Trump trip is complete without controversy. Democrats at home pounced. They questioned whether Trump's business empire was benefiting from Gulf generosity. A rumored $2 billion crypto deal with the UAE sparked ethics concerns. The real firestorm erupted over Qatar's offer to gift Trump a luxurious Boeing 747 Flying Palace for presidential use. Legal scholars cried emoluments violation. Protest banners flew over Mar-a-Lago. Trump shrugged it off as a generous gift. Critics also slammed his silence on human rights. No word on Yemen, jail dissidents, or press freedom. His praise for MBS, despite the Khashoggi killing, was seen as tone-deaf. Humanitarian groups warned that Trump's deal's first doctrine risked whitewashing repression. But Trump made no apologies. For him, peace came through prosperity. And prosperity started with partnership. Even Iran loomed large over the tour. Trump, who had exited the nuclear deal in his first term, was now quietly negotiating a new one through back channels in Oman. Publicly, he kept the pressure high, threatening maximum consequences if Tehran stalled. But in private, he offered a deal. Trump's Middle East, it seemed, had room for both threats and treaties. As the trip ended, the results were staggering. Over $3 trillion in deals and pledges. A U.S.-Arab alignment stronger than at any point in the last decade. A war-shattered Syria re-engaged. A Gaza strategy recalibrated. A region pivoting east pulled back, at least partially, into the American orbit. Trump called it the most successful foreign trip in U.S. history. Time will tell if the paper promises become concrete results. But one thing is undeniable: Donald Trump once again remade the rules of global diplomacy in his image. Bold, unpredictable, transactional, and obsessed with winning. As Trump departed Abu Dhabi, his jet slicing through the desert sky under escort, the weight of what had transpired began to settle across capitals from Cairo to Tehran. This wasn't just a visit, it was a geopolitical thunderclap, a signal that the U.S. under Trump was back, unapologetically bold and playing by its own rules. The Middle East had changed, and Trump wasn't reacting, he was shaping it. In Washington, the reaction was swift. Democrats pounced on what they called an ethics disaster in the making. They saw red flags in every handshake, every investment pledge, every whispered deal that blurred the line between public office and private gain. A $2 billion crypto deal tied to Trump's family, a $400 million luxury jet gift from Qatar. The murmurs became headlines, but Trump didn't flinch. He fired back on social media, brushing aside criticism, claiming he had brought in more investment in 1 week than the entire previous administration. For his base, it was vintage Trump fighting the system, breaking the mold, delivering results. Meanwhile, in the Arab world, the reaction was more layered. Leaders praised Trump's audacity. He had opened channels others feared to touch. He had offered post-war visions instead of preconditions. He had spoken not in the language of lectures and sanctions, but of business and respect. But on the streets, it was different. In Cairo's cafes and Amman's souks, people debated, was this man serious about Palestinian rights or just chasing Gulf gold? Could a man who once banned Muslims from the U.S. now be trusted to champion Arab dignity? The emotional core of the trip lay in Gaza. Though Trump never set foot in Israel, the war dominated every conversation. Arab leaders, one after another, told him, the blood in Gaza must stop. If you want peace with Israel, you must first give peace to the Palestinians. Trump didn't argue. he listened, perhaps more than ever before. And by the trip's end, he was floating a bold new idea, an American-led peace plan that didn't just revive the two-state solution, but economically rebuilt Gaza from the ground up. No forced relocations, no fantasies of Gaza becoming the next Dubai by removing its people. Just reconstruction, recognition, respect. In Syria, Trump's about faced their stunned diplomats. Just months ago, Ahmed al-Sharaa was hunted by U.S. intelligence. Now, he was being offered investment and international legitimacy. Critics cried foul. Supporters called it pragmatic. But the truth was this: the U.S. had a chance to fill the vacuum in Syria before Russia or Iran did. Trump took it. Iran loomed like a shadow over every summit. Trump offered them a choice deal now, or face the maximum pressure of his return. The message was backed by real force and whispered diplomacy. It was vintage Trump: hold out a hand while keeping the other clenched. By the time he touched down in D.C., Trump was already calling it the most successful foreign trip in modern U.S. history. And in some ways, it was. Never before had a U.S. president secured over $3 trillion in economic promises, upended decades of isolation with a single handshake, and walked away with the Gulf's most powerful monarchs praising American leadership anew. But the real test lies ahead. Will the promised investments materialize? Will Gaza see peace? Will Syria stabilize or implode again? Will Iran step back from the brink? These questions now define the future of U.S. foreign policy and Trump's second-term legacy. What's undeniable is this: Trump didn't just visit the Arab world, he rewrote the script. With oil, arms, AI, and ambition, he cast himself not just as a deal maker, but a power broker. And whether loved or loathed, he left a region and a world forever changed.